Welcome back, friends, to the Witcher Lorecast. We have another wonderful, spoopy, bestiary episode coming up tonight because we're in the middle of Spooptober, and this is a weird night to be doing a podcast. Toasty is going on vacation, so we're recording this one early. It feels like we just got together and spoke to each other, Toasty, just a few nights ago.
Did. 2 days ago.
2 days ago. Yeah. So if you're tuning in live, this is a Wednesday night, which is weird because normally we do the shows on a Monday night. So you're getting a very early episode this week. But if you are listening to the podcast, you're probably getting this at the very normal time. So this conversation doesn't make any sense. But we were teasing this just a few nights ago. We're moving into werewolf territory. And you can tell it's werewolf territory by all the pee stains under the trees, right? Because werewolves mark their territory like dogs do. Is that a thing?
I mean, I suppose.
Can you distract them with squeaky toys?
I don't think so. I don't think you can.
No, you can't. They like to be scratched under the ear.
I think they mark their territory in different ways than normal dogs. I think
that doesn't work.
Less pleasant ways.
Oh, okay. Well, you're the expert on this. You're the one who put together the show notes. So I will let you tell me what the official word is on how werewolves mark their territory and some other things. So why don't we?
Funnily enough, I didn't in any of the research I did. I didn't see anything about territory marking or squeaky toys, so I think there's just maybe a lack of attentiveness on the internet's part. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe they didn't invent squeaky toys yet in the world of The Witcher. I feel like that's a more modern invention.
Maybe not.
Or maybe you just need to like grab hold of a chicken and a duck and squeeze it until it squeaks. A squeaky bird.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Have I ever squeezed a chicken in my life? I don't think so.
I don't think I have either. But a mouse.
I used to raise chickens, so I don't think so.
You used to raise chickens?
Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
I was born on a farm. I lived on a farm for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah, I raised chickens.
Can you squeak a chicken?
I don't remember squeaking any chickens, so
I suppose they probably make like a sound rather than a squeak.
Normally, yeah. It's a lot harder to catch chickens than you think. So
yeah, I bet it is. All right, so okay, we'll put the chicken talk to the side here, and why don't we move into werewolves? So where do we start with werewolves in The Witcher? And I'm assuming werewolves in The Witcher are a little bit different than just stereotypical werewolves, or at least they're more specific than maybe what the average person would think about in a werewolf, right?
Yeah, there's some key differences there from Witcher werewolves and like I will say probably the modern concept of werewolves, because this is kind of like the first time we're delving into like a more popular like monster. I mean, we talked about wraiths and stuff, which are kind of like ghosts, so kind of in between. And then like there's no real modern variation of a striga, but werewolves are like everywhere. I mean, I would say they're probably like maybe the second most popular like supernatural creature behind vampires, I would say.
Yeah, so they're up there in popular media.
This will be a bit of an interesting episode. So I'm gonna read a little excerpt from about werewolves here.
All right. Can you do it in like a cool narrator voice?
I'll give it my best shot, but my voice doesn't have a lot of range, if you haven't noticed before.
Let's just give your best. So let's go for it.
Give it a shot.
Yeah, here we go.
I'll get real close.
Yeah.
Neither animal nor man. The werewolf takes the worst from both species, the bloodlust and primal nature of a wolf, and the ruthlessness and cruelty of a human.
Whoa, pause. I like this. The bloodlust and primal nature of a wolf, but then the ruthlessness and cruelty of a human. That's some dark stuff. Not the ruthlessness and cruelty of a wolf, but of a human. Oh, man. Okay, this is like...
Well, so
they're kicking this off right at the beginning.
Yeah, so this is a little thing. I'm obviously not an expert in wolves specifically, but I did I really do like wolves. Like if I was to be an animal, I would want to be a wolf. That's like my top choice. And wolves aren't really like they're not like violent or like cruel in nature.
Right.
Like, wolves are a very protective species.
Right. Yeah.
So like, yeah, they'll defend themselves from other like predators or like people or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they hunt and whatnot, but that's how they live. That's, it's not like they're doing it just to be malicious.
As a house cat will just toy with its prey in a malicious manner.
Oh yeah, 100%. And wolves are very like caring in nature. Like their pack, they're very social creatures, and like they're very like loyal to the pack and whatnot. An entire pack of wolves will die to defend the cubs from a danger. It's so they're really like noble, honorable creatures. They're not cruel. The cruelty comes from human stuff. Man.
This is why we trained wolves and we domesticated them into dogs.
And that's why dogs are amazing.
That's why dogs are better than cats. And we just lost half of our listenership.
Probably less than half. The internet's popular opinion is that dogs are better than cats. Let's be honest. I like both. I think dogs are a bit easier and nicer than cats. Cats are a pain in the ass. I would know. I got two of them. We're
very quickly losing listeners. All right. No, cats are fine too. I'm just allergic to them, so I have to be biased. All right, let's move on.
Let me get back in here. Okay. One becomes a werewolf as a result of a curse thrown by a witch. The change itself is uncontrollable and unwilling. A man who transforms back to his human form can't usually remember the atrocious acts committed as a werewolf. Werewolves are creatures of the night, and they are especially active during the full moon. They usually go hunting alone, as there rarely is an opponent that can match their strength, agility, and fast health regeneration. If a werewolf actually encounters an enemy that has equivalent strength and can fight a fair fight, the creature can call for wolven reinforcements that will come to its aid. A good way of dealing with werewolves is a sword covered with oil to combat cursed creatures, or a silver bomb that will temporarily block the creature's regenerative power.
Man, they call out they do the like wolf howl thing, and then the other wolves are like, time for the pack to regather together because one of our buddies needs some help.
Which gets back into what I was saying before. Like, the wolves help each other to stick together. And we've talked about that to some extent from, the school of the wolf and how they kind of act. So, So out of the excerpt, we can get back into normal voice. Werewolves are therianthropes who transform into wolves or have wolves. As other such creatures, they are hardly hurt by steel, but very vulnerable to silver.
Right. And also the silver bomb, which stops the regenerative power of the wolf, which makes a lot of sense. This idea that like, if you're going to kill the thing, you need to be able to wound it to the point where it can die. And it just stops healing long enough that you can kill it.
Yeah. There are two common ways to acquire lycanthropy, and contrary to popular belief, being bitten by a werewolf is not one of these ways.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. The first way is to be cursed, and the second is by having a werewolf parent. It is possible, however, to contract lycanthropy through a bite, but there's only a small chance from this. Those who are born as werewolves are able to fully control their shape-shifting abilities, while those cursed or bitten change into their werewolf form only during the full moon. Those who became werewolves during their lives, however, are the only ones who can be cured. The wolfsbane plant is said to mitigate the illness's symptoms.
Wait, so if you're the offspring of a werewolf, you can't be cured from it, but you are more in control of the transformation.
Yeah, if you are the offspring of a werewolf, you can control it. So you are not forced into it at any time. Like whenever you change it to a werewolf, that's your choice.
Right. So you could go among the population and never transform if you don't want to.
I believe so.
So you could look like a regular human and just be normal as much as you want, and nobody would ever know for the most part. But you would still pass it on to your children, potentially.
Yep. And it's not without like certain, as it says, symptoms. There's certain consequences to being a werewolf, even one in control of the change. Therianthropic diseases, including lycanthropy, appeared in the world after the conjunction of the spheres, affecting non-human and early human populations alike. According to Erbolth, lands in the Toyna Valley, also called the Dogbane, were plagued by werewolves before the Nordling colonization.
The Dogbane. Did you get the name because of the werewolves?
Probably.
That would make sense, right?
It would. Werewolves have a legendary sense of smell, exceptional even amongst real wolves. Lycanthropes are usually on good terms with other canines, and as one would expect, hate werecats.
That makes sense. That would make sense.
Of course.
Yeah. So there's a question in chat. Switch in Bed says, are grandchildren of werewolves affected? And I don't know that we know that question specifically, but it seems to me that if it is passed from parent to child and the child exhibits the traits of the werewolf, then it then potentially could be passed to their children. And as long as the line shows the traits, then the traits can then be passed on to the next generation. Yeah,
it didn't go into specifics of like how much of a chance there is of contracting it this way. It could be in a sense of like there's 100% chance that you get it. Like if your parent is a werewolf, then there could be 100% chance that you'll be a werewolf, and therefore that entire generation or that entire like line will just be werewolves.
Right. So, but I wonder, like that raises the question though, like is it potentially a recessive gene type thing where you could have it? You have children, the children don't exhibit the signs of lycanthropy, but it's like a recessive gene. They have children and then their children show it because they could still pass it on, even though they themselves don't necessarily show the signs of having it. Like it would be interesting. I don't know of any stories in The Witcher where that happens. I don't know that.
I don't know exactly. It's possible that it's a thing that could be like explored easily. I mean, as we know, like mages and sorcerers and things often do a lot of like scientific experiments and whatnot. So
gene studies,
I'm sure
and things.
If like someone was capable and managed to like have like a line of werewolves, that it'd probably be easy enough to find out. I just don't think anybody has like committed to that yet. So right. These breeds of cursed creatures are quite fast and very lethal. They can jump great distances and at such high speeds that defending yourself against one could be challenging at best. Utilizing the sign Irden can be a useful way to slow them down, making close quarter combat safer. Igni and Axi can also be used to stop the werewolf in its tracks momentarily, leaving enough of a window for one or two heavy attacks. Werewolves have a powerful health regeneration ability, even more potent than that of ghouls. Witchers who are unable to give enough damage output within a short time will have to be prepared for an exhausting fight, if not at all impossible. As long as the werewolf can regenerate health faster than he takes damage, it can outlast a witcher no matter how good he is in defensive and evasive tactics.
Right. That's like what I was stating earlier. It doesn't matter how much damage you do if it can out heal the damage that you're doing on the werewolf.
I remember the first time I fought a werewolf in The Witcher 3.
In real life? Oh, in The Witcher 3. Okay.
Yeah, no, in The Witcher 3. I remember because obviously you don't know these things as much. And so, you're fighting this guy and you're trying to play it safe, right? You're like, okay, let me get into that little window, do some damage, then, play it safe, defend a little bit so that you don't die. And I realized like I was doing that and he was just regenning everything that I was doing. And I was like, what, how am I supposed to beat this guy?
Yeah. You just gotta wail into him. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're just really fast and stuff. So it's hard to like, defend and whatnot. So I ended up using Axie a bunch to just stop him, and then just like hitting him a ton. And then, so it was kind of slog the first time I fought one, though. I will say that much. Fire, bleeding, and poison effects can be used to slow their regeneration down, although inflicting these statuses upon the werewolf is a challenge in itself, considering their speed. So it's werewolves are tough. And I think it's kind of interesting to come back to this. Is like because wraiths aren't like human anymore. They don't really exhibit much of their human behavior because they're dead and they've forgotten what it is to be alive for the most part. So, you don't have to really talk about like the humanity aspect of wraiths because, there's really nothing there. And Striga don't really possess that unless the curse has been removed. So it's not like a transitioning effect because they're a monster until you cure them, and then they're not 100% a monster anymore, but there's still some of those monster instincts. But no one really talks about that as much. And this situation with werewolves, it's weird to talk about because they are like the most fluidly in between on these aspects, because they are human, they are alive. It just sometimes they turn into this monster and do bad things, but they have a lot of werewolves and whatnot have like kind of control of their faculties and things. It's a very interesting dynamic here with werewolves in particular, because they are, as we've seen for like people like who played The Witcher 3 and whatnot, there's quests involved. There's people like the one where the dude ends up killing his wife because the sister like takes her out into the woods to see that he's a werewolf, and he ends up killing his wife and doesn't even know it, and is like, I don't know where my wife's at, hey Witcher, can you help me find my wife? But and he still feels like the hurt and the guilt from doing this once he finds out, and he's like distraught about it. So he regrets doing these actions. He doesn't revel in it.
Right. So there's some more self-awareness than in some of these other monsters.
Yeah. All right. So we have some notable werewolves here from The Witcher. So first we have Otto Dussart, who was a non-violent man cursed with lycanthropy. And he and Geralt have actually helped each other in the past, as Geralt had some interaction with them, and because he wasn't like he didn't want to hurt people, Geralt actually like spares him. So interesting.
Yeah.
We have Vincent Mies, head of the city guard in Vitsima in the first Witcher game. He used his lycanthropy to kill criminals at night, and then Geralt is presented with the option of either killing him or sparing him. So here, like, this guy has control somewhat of his like his mental state when he shifts into a werewolf, because he's putting his curse to a better use by like specifically killing criminals.
Right. It's like he still has the bloodlust, but he's using it as kind of a vigilante.
Yeah. It's like he's like channeling it into a more positive,
more noble thing. It's still illegal, but it's a more noble use of it.
Yeah, because this, he's head of the city guard. He obviously wants to be an upstanding citizen and whatnot. And
he knows who to target. He probably has very good reason for targeting these criminals, and pretty good solid proof that they are the ones who are actually behind things before he goes after them. So
I imagine it's kind of like in the sense of like whenever you come across that criminal that's just so high status you can't do anything about him. Like
right. He's basically the Punisher.
So you go after him with
Right. If the Punisher was a werewolf, he's the Punisher. Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
We have Eberhard of Rivia, who's a mage and scholar and lived in Novigrad, and even came up with a medication to stop the transformation. Though he still experienced fits of anger and bloodlust around the full moon. So this is kind of what I was talking about before.
Cured. Yeah.
So even if you don't have to transform, there's still things that are associated with it. So here, like he managed to not transform anymore, which all in all is a good thing because, as a werewolf, he would do a lot more damage, but he still had to deal with, the anger and the bloodlust, and that affected him. And he had to be prepared for that, even still. Because you can still do stupid stuff when you're angry and bloodthirsty.
Oh, absolutely. Human, even just as a regular person. Andy was a mage.
He was a mage, so he had access to magic. Who knows what? So
yeah.
The King of the Wolves, he's more of a minor one that you encounter whenever you're playing during the first Ciri level, I believe, in The Witcher 3. The first time you get to play as Ciri, and you help out a little girl, and then you have to kill the King of the Wolves, who's just a werewolf. And then probably one of the more notable guys, Morkvarg. And if you played The Witcher 3, you've definitely run into this guy. You've seen him probably a few times. He was a notorious pirate who feared nothing but the wrath of the gods. And this hubris encouraged him to sack Freya's garden when he sailed to Hindarsfjall. Disgusted by the atrocities Morkvarg committed, one of his crew, Einar, cursed Morkvarg with a wolf pendant. This curse made... Oh, I must have put this wrong. Sorry. The curse made him a werewolf, as well as trapping him in the garden and giving him an insatiable hunger that he couldn't appease, as all food he attempted to consume turned to ash.
Yeah.
So, but the part of the main quest, you have to go to Freya's garden. So you definitely at least encounter him somewhat. But he did a lot of bad things, got cursed for it, even beyond just being a werewolf.
That's kind of a double-bladed curse too, because now you're just making a werewolf even more angry and pissed off because he can't eat anything and satiate his hunger. Which, I mean, that's not a very safe curse to have set on a werewolf, Now he's just even more angry.
Yeah, which, I mean, it was fine because of him being trapped in Freya's garden, and like not a lot of people went there. There was very few people, and as word spreads, hey, don't go to Freya's garden. Morkvarg's there. People are like, okay, I'll just avoid it.
He would just prowl around and stuff. That quest ends in some very interesting things that Yennefer does in order to remedy the situation. That's part of a different kind of thing. I think she has to raise a dude who I think Morkvarg killed. But there's some really interesting stuff that gets decided and really pushes her to use some powers that she doesn't want to have to use, and it gets pretty dark. So cool stuff. If you haven't played through The Witcher 3, again, totally worth playing through. Some really cool set pieces in that game.
Oh yeah, for sure. So we've
got to take our mid-break right here, but what are we going to talk about when we get back from the mid-break?
So we're going to delve into a couple different aspects of werewolf folklore. So we're going to look at the kind of, I think, more common ideologies of werewolves, the things that people are more aware of in modern media, and then what I think they drew their biggest inspiration from is that werewolves in Slavic/Polish folklore, because we know they a lot of inspiration was pulled from specifically that.
Nice. All right, well, let's go thank our patrons, and we will be right back.
Very well. Let us get this over with. Something has infested my vineyard.
Great. Let me go prepare my something oil then.
All right, here we are in the middle of the show, and we are so thankful for our patrons, all 6 of you guys, for being here and supporting the show. So thank you to all of you guys. And if you are listening to this at work, or driving to work and listening to this, or working out and listening to this, or washing your werewolf and listening to this, and we're helping you get through your day, then please consider going to patreon.com/ Witcher Lorecast and taking a look at all the different tiers. You can get ad-free episodes early. If Toasty and I are going off on some tangent before or after the show and having some sort of extra conversation, then you can be part of that as well and get the extra content that happens every so many episodes. We'll add some extra stuff in there. Also, if you want to join us on the end of the month patron episode, you are welcome to do that as well. There's a tier for that. Tier 4 members are able to do that. And the end of the month patron episode is coming up in just a few weeks from when we're recording this. And when this goes out, it'll be just a week away on the 25th. So that is coming up very, very soon. So we'd love to have you join us on the end of the month episode. So go check out patreon.com/Witcher Lorecast. And thank you to everybody who signs up and helps us out. Also, if you're looking for other ways to help us out that doesn't cost any money, then you can just tell your friends. That's the best way to help us spread word of the podcast. If you love The Witcher, you love the TV show, you love the games, the books, and you just want to share it with some friends and as a way to just learn more about the world of The Witcher, then share the podcast. Also, leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts is a way to do that as well. You don't have to listen on Apple Podcasts. You just have to have an Apple account. It's really easy to just sign up, go to the website. You can just search Witcher Lorecast Apple Podcast. It'll come right up. You can leave a 5-star rating and review, and we'll read out your words on a future episode of the show. And it really does help us. So those are some easy ways to help us out. So we really do appreciate it. And we don't have any new reviews right now because it's only been 2 days since we recorded our last episode of the show. But maybe by the time we do our next show, we'll end up with some new ones. And that's what we got going on. So thank you to everyone who helps us out. We really do appreciate it. We wouldn't be able to do this show and have as many listeners as we do currently for such a young show as we do now if it wasn't for you guys. You really do make this show possible. So thank you to everyone. And thanks again to the patrons. You guys are the best. All right, let's move on with the rest of the show.
You smell of death and destiny, heroics and heartbreak.
It's onion.
Right, yeah.
All right, so we're talking real world folklore. So where do we start?
Real world folklore. Yep. So we're going to start with what I think probably is more of the modern idea. So what we have here, right, is some no one's actually really sure where exactly werewolves started. So we have some possibilities here. Some scholars believe that the werewolf made its debut in the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Oh, wow.
The oldest known Western prose, when Gilgamesh jilted a potential lover because she had turned her previous mate into a wolf.
This is very, very old.
Yeah,
like,
Gilgamesh is like Sumerian folklore, right?
Yes. So this is like extremely old. This is thousands of years old literature.
Yep. It's pretty crazy. Werewolves also made another early appearance in Greek mythology with the legend of Lycon. According to the legend, Lycon, the son of Pelasgus, that's an interesting name, angered the god Zeus when he served him a meal made from the remains of a sacrificed boy. As punishment, the enraged Zeus turned Lycon and his sons into wolves.
Right, that's lycanthropy. That's like Lycan is Greek, so that makes sense.
And werewolves also emerged in early Nordic folklore. The saga of the Volsungs tells the story of a father and a son who discovered wolf pelts that had the power to turn people into wolves for 10 days. The father-son duo donned the pelts, transformed into wolves, and went on a killing rampage in the forest. Their rampage ended when the father attacked his son, causing a lethal wound. The son only survived because a kind raven gave the father a leaf with healing powers.
That sounds very Nordic. There's a lot of Nordic themes in there. Ravens and wolves and father, son, all that kind of stuff. I wonder if there's something inherently there's so much about man and wolf and man and dog. Historically, we know that we've been raising wolves and evolving them basically into dogs for a very, very long time. That there's just like kind of a bond between our two species, and it's happened for such a long time. And it probably has a lot to do with the waste and the food that we would throw out. And the availability of that food was probably very appealing to the wolves that would be in the areas. And wolves are very common in many different locations around the world. And that food was probably appealing to the wolves. So the wolves would be interested in getting closer and closer to the humans, but they were probably kind of scared of the humans because the humans had fire and we had spears and things that, we would throw at the wolves in order to get them to go away. But of course, the wolves would be still, interested in the food, especially when it was winter and they were very hungry. And then, somebody was smart enough to try to train the wolves and try to get, one of the more docile ones to do what they wanted it to do by using the food. And then we started training them. So I think fundamentally, probably for, 10, 20,000 years now, we've probably had this love-hate relationship with these very large, this is something that the modern world doesn't think about. The size of wolves, a large dog is a big thing. You don't want to have to wrestle with a large dog that's angry with you. It will bite your arm or your neck and could potentially kill you, right? A trained guard dog is a very dangerous thing. Wolves, a large wolf could be 2 to 3 times the size of that. That is a very scary thing to have to deal with.
And most wolves, they don't with a dog, you get attacked by a large dog or something. It's normally you're going to face that dog by itself. It might
be by itself, not necessarily in a pack.
Yeah, wolves normally, even if you manage to, you're not faced with the entire pack, which, chances are you wouldn't be, but you're still going to be out there. And normally wolves hunt in at least groups of 3 to 6. So if you face one wolf in the forest, likely there's 2 more or more lurking away because they're also incredibly good at being stealthy. Right. So you probably don't even know that they're right behind you.
Right. And their body weight is probably equivalent to yours. At least that's it's got to be scary, human beings. You think about the way human beings lived 10, 20,000 years ago, hunting, gathering out in the wilderness, there must have been a love-hate relationship with these creatures because there was something appealing about them. They were potentially trainable, but at the same time, very frightening. So it makes sense that we were telling these stories historically for very long periods of time throughout history.
Yeah. And I'd like to think that humans also possibly, noticed just how, I guess, effective they are as a group.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't know if, obviously we don't go out to the wilderness looking for wolf packs to see how good they are at hunting something.
But we might have been following the same prey and noticed how well they hunted things and maybe even learned from them.
Yeah. I've been, I live in Texas. So, a lot of Texans like to hunt. I have gone hunting plenty of times before in my life. And I have gone hunting with dogs. So, and normally what you do is you have a trailer with all the dogs on it and whatnot, you pull it with the truck, and you have 2, depending on how big your group is. We had a pretty good size. We had a dozen. So it was pretty crazy. But we had 2 kind of scout dogs, and they would sit on top, and they were the most trained. So they would sit on top of them, on top of the kennels. And whenever they smelled something, they would immediately jump and start going after it. And that's whenever we knew, because they were so well trained, they wouldn't go after just anything. They knew what they were supposed to go after. And that's when we would release the rest of the dogs. And how effective a highly trained group of dogs can take down animals is insane. Yeah. It's terrifying. Right. They are so effective. They normally you let this group of dogs loose and they're taking down whatever it is they're going after in a matter of seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine animals that are significantly larger in size and more effective and more deadly because they have much bigger teeth and they're faster. That's just, it's frightening. And they
don't hesitate. The dogs that I hunted with, they were trained to restrain the animal. They weren't trained to kill the animal. They were trained to pin it down, restrain it.
Right.
Wolves, they don't hesitate on that. They're killing.
Yeah. The size of a wolf's head is the size of your torso. Like its mouth could probably get its way across your entire torso. Yeah, it's just like that's.
Well, I like to think that some humans saw that and they were like, we need to get us some of those. Yeah. They're really good at this. They're way better at hunting than we are. We need to get some.
Right. And and if we keep them in our camp and feed them our scraps, they'll growl at things in the middle of the night and wake us up. They'll be our alarm at the same time to keep, and our neighbors over there, if these things are sleeping next to us at night, they're not going to mess with us in the middle of the night.
Oh yeah. You get messed up.
Yeah. Nobody's going to mess with us if we got these guys in our camp. Yeah. Like it totally makes sense. But I think that's the core to some of this stuff is this like the danger, but the appeal of working with things like wolves creates these stories. And so it makes sense. Like this idea that like, oh, that's the wolf guy. He's crazy enough to try to train a wolf. Well, maybe he's got a special magic coat that turns him into a wolf. And that's why the wolves trust him. Like these kinds of stories spin out of that. Right.
Right. So we got some, a little bit of, information here about kind of werewolves as shapeshifters. So some legends maintain werewolves shapeshifted at will due to a curse. So we see a little bit, there at the ones that got cursed weren't the ones that were able to shapeshift at will, but we do see a little bit of, the dynamic of either being able to control your shift, being cursed. Others state they transform with the help of an enchanted sash or a cloak made of a wolf pelt. So some sort of like magical item that allowed them to do it.
Right.
Still others claim that people became wolves after being scratched or bit by a werewolf. And I think that's probably the most common like conception that people have of, people get turned into werewolves and they get bitten by a werewolf. Right. So in many werewolf stories, a person only turns into a wolf when there's a full moon. And that theory may not be far-fetched. According to a study conducted in Australia's Cavalry Mater Newcastle Hospital, a full moon brings out the beast, in quotations, in many humans. The study found that of the 91 violent acute behavior incidents at the hospital between August 2008 and July 2009, 23% happened during a full moon. So something about the full moon brings out, I guess, more bestial nature.
Yeah, this is something that in skeptic circles they've really looked into a lot, and it turns out that this is actually not what it seems like it is. So we can go into it in a little bit more detail, but it's one of those things where people tend to it has something to do with like there's more light out. And there's other reasons around this. It's not that people are more violent during full moons, but there's other reasons why things happen during full moons that don't seem to be happening. There's also some confirmation bias in some of these studies, but I don't know. It's one of those things that it's neither here nor there. But I think historically that in a time where there isn't as much street light and things like that on nights, there may be more people out and about during a full moon because you actually can see. Like think about when you live in a place that's very dark and there's moonlight on a night where there isn't very much moonlight. It's actually really, really dark. It's actually very hard to see if you've ever lived somewhere where there's just not a whole lot of light out. But on a night where you do have a full moon out, you actually can see at night. Like it's bright enough that your eyes can adjust. So people are more likely to go out and do things on those nights. And some of the things you go out and do on those nights are nefarious. So you're more likely to plan to do something nefarious on a night where you can actually see. So there's some rationale behind that as well.
Fair enough. I mean, you're the expert here in that side of things. So I'll take your word for it.
So I don't know. There's some other reasoning for why that may or may not actually be true, but who knows?
Then a instance called Peter the Wild Boy. In 1725, he was found wandering naked on all fours through a German forest. Many thought he was a werewolf, or at least raised by wolves. Peter ate with his hands and couldn't speak. He was eventually adopted by the courts of King George I and King George II, lived out his days as their pet in England, which, that's obviously not great, but that's 1725. So obviously things like that happened. research had shown that Peter likely had Pitt-Hopkins syndrome, a condition discovered in 1978 that causes lack of speech, seizures, distinct facial features, difficulty breathing, and intellectual challenges. Other medical conditions that may have encouraged werewolf mania throughout history are lycanthropy.
Well, yeah, this is like the medical condition of lycanthropy, where people believe they're a werewolf, right?
Yeah, a rare psychological condition that causes people to believe that they're changing into a wolf or another animal. Food poisoning, hypertrichosis, a rare genetic disorder causing excessive hair growth.
Have you seen pictures of hypertrichosis? Have you seen this?
No.
There are families that have this genetic disorder. They pass it on to their children, and the way that we as males grow hair on our faces, and it's limited to, say, the lower part of our faces, right? Like our jaw lines and our mustache areas, and then your eyebrows. Well, people with hypertrichosis actually grow hair almost all over the front of their heads. So their hairline's down to their eyes, and their faces up to the tops of their cheeks grow hair. So it like an image of like an old movie where they do like the werewolf and they just put hair all over their faces to make them look like a wolf man, and they don't actually do like the snout or anything. That's kind of what they look like. And this is actually pretty common. There are some families that live, I believe, in Mexico that have hypertrichosis, and this affects some members of the family more than others, and it affects both men and women. And there are some of these members of these families that live mostly hidden away because they don't like to go out and be parts of their community too much because they look different. And there's nothing else, quote unquote, wrong with them other than they have this odd genetic disorder, which causes them to grow extra hair on their faces and other parts of their body as well. But people will call them like the wolf man or things like that. And it's unfortunate because it's, there's not much they can do about it, but it does look like it is very odd because it's striking. And when you go out with all that extra hair on your face, people are going to notice.
And the last thing was hallucination caused by hallucinogenic herbs.
Or you believe you're a werewolf because you're on
drugs.
You're on drugs.
Which, drugs do crazy things. So, believable. Throughout the centuries, people have used werewolves and other mythic beasts to explain the unexplainable, which, a lot of people know that. In modern times, however, most believe werewolves are nothing more than pop culture horror icons.
Right. So a lot of this stuff comes from a history.com article called History of the Werewolf Legend. So if you guys want to go look that up, you can search history.com, History of the Werewolf Legend for the full article if you want to find out more about all that stuff. So citing our sources. So there
citing
you go.
Our sources. Woo. And this, so that's pretty much what I had for kind of the more, I guess, modern conception of werewolves. And here we got an article on brendannoble.com on the, and here we start getting into the Slavic / Polish stuff where it's hard to pronounce.
Yeah.
The Wilkalok or the Vukadlok.
Okay.
Or the werewolf in Slavic mythology. So, oof.
Let's do it. We're committing. We're committing to the pronunciations of words we don't know.
The Vukad.
I'm gonna search a pronunciation for this while you.
I started dying. Oh my gosh! The Vukadlok means a wolf fur. By the way, to the early Slavs, the wolf was a symbol of gods such as Dadspog.
Okay.
Dadspot. I'm seeing this and I'm seeing Dadbod, which is just funny to me. Sorry.
We'll just call it Dadbod. Okay, you want to hear this word pronounced? Here,
oh gosh.
Let's see if it'll come through. Here we go. Let's see what the website says.
Wilkalak.
I don't think that's how it's pronounced.
Wilkalak.
There's a little computery there.
Oh, that's what it said.
Wilkalak or something. I don't know.
Here, I'll try another one. Let's see. English pronunciation.
Wilkolak.
Okay, let's hear it in Polish. Polish pronunciation.
Wilkołak.
Oh, that sounds
right. Here's another Polish pronunciation.
Wilkołak.
Wilkołak. All right, that sounds about right. Okay. All right, I'm down with that.
Well, that works then. Yes.
All right.
All right. Anyways, back to the article. To the early Slavs, the wolf was a symbol of gods such as Dadsbog, the white wolf specifically, Marzana or Morana, Velis, and sometimes I guess it's just Davana, but it's some of these things are spelled a little differently. It's giving us more easy to read. It symbolized the ferocity of nature and was meant to be respected and often revered. The wolf also howls at the moon and was believed to have some connection to the phases of the moon, which will connect to the Wilkołak later. The combination of fear and worship was common for the early Slavs with both the gods and the creatures such as the wolf and bear. While the bear was often considered more kingly, though, the wolf was an aggressive outsider willing to strike the shepherd's flock. This could be a literal or a representation of the fear of outsiders.
Okay.
Nearly every Slavic village in pagan times was unfortified and an invader could strike at any time. So, back in times like that, if you don't have a fortified village, you're just going to get raided probably all the time by Yeah. So, all right. The making of a Wilkołak. I'm not good at this.
Wilkołak.
I did much better. Wilkołak. So in the Christian idea of eating wolf meat, So if the Christian idea of eating wolf meat and the Western idea of being bit by a werewolf aren't the ways one becomes, then how did it happen? The Wilkołak is different than many other creatures. It isn't undead.
Right. Okay.
It isn't undead,
right?
Which actually fits here because we talked about an undead thing. It's not classified as a demon. It is not the lingering soul of someone who died unnaturally or lived an unnatural life. It's like we said before, they're living. They're among people living lives. So the first way one becomes a Wilkołak is voluntary. So like many demons in Slavic folklore, powerful enough witches and sorcerers could shapeshift into a Wilkołak or other creatures. Processes for this differed, but one story involves a sorcerer leaping over knives placed on the stump of an ash tree. So
often one struck by lightning. Oh, that's cool.
In these cases, the change was temporary and the sorcerer could simply do the ritual backward to shift back.
Wait, you jump backwards over the tree again?
So
weird.
So you just have like a designated tree stump outside. Like you just have one outside your house. You go out, cut down a tree.
Honey, I'm going to go run around with my wolf buddies. You jump over the tree. Ooh, and then you just run off.
That's like kind of crazy. Like, that's very interesting. Like that's a very specific ritual,
and yet still so simple.
It's just jumping over a tree stump.
Hey, Uncle Sorcerer guy, can we go play outside in the yard? Yeah, that's fine, kids. Go play on the yard.
Stay away from the stump.
Don't jump over that. Oh no, the kids are all werewolves. Oh,
hey. This way, come backward. Which it says they do the ritual backward. I'm wondering, do you have to jump backward over it? How do you manage that?
That's harder to do. It's harder to jump backwards over a tree stump than to forward over a tree stump.
Yeah. So this was the one of the voluntary methods here, but it was also possible to become one unwillingly. One such possibility was to be one from birth. We were talking about before,
like the
Strzyga.
Yeah. There you go.
Or Striga.
Similarly to some other demons like the Striga and the human form of the Zudak, most commonly told in the Carpathian regions, this version of the Wilkołak was typically considered punishment for the poor actions of one's parents or simply being born at the wrong time or in the wrong direction. It also
wait. Being born in the wrong direction? Does that mean like coming out breech birth? Like, what does that mean?
Possibly.
I don't know.
Possibly.
That's weird. Okay.
Interesting. I guess if there's a very common way for, babies to be aligned when they come out, and I guess if you don't, then
head first.
Yeah. It also aligns more with the typical Western view of the werewolf, changing forms between humans and the Volkolak under eclipses and certain phases of the moon.
Right.
In their human form, they were hairy, but there was a little else to identify them besides forgetting their actions at night. This Volkolak, like most others, could heal quickly and was incredibly powerful. The unique thing about it, though, is its carnivorous and sometimes cannibalistic tendencies, making it more relevant to being a demon. Despite this, it is key to remember that attacking people did not turn those people into Volkolaks in Slavic folklore. So,
right.
So in this folklore, it is hard to become, but you don't become one by being attacked, kind of much like The Witcher, where there's a possibility, but it's very uncommon. Right. The final way one becomes a Volkolak is by a curse. More familiar things here. Yeah. A variety of curses were possible in Slavic folklore, and while we don't know of most of them, tales tell of witches and sorcerers turning people into Volkolaks. Two ways to do this were by throwing a wolf pelt over their victim's head or leading them through an enchanted doorway. In these cases, the Volkolak transformation was permanent until the curse ran out, or people shortened their time as one through various rituals. The transformed person was conscious, and unlike the ones who changed from birth, wept often.
They hated it. They were so sad. They're like, I don't want to be a Volkolak.
This is kind of like, like Beauty and the Beast?
Oh, yeah.
Sort of, where he got cursed, turned into a beast, but he was still himself with a bit more animalistic tendencies, but he's still like a human. These people were often said to be treated with pity more than fear. Right.
Like, oh, that poor Volkolak over there in the castle.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it for what we got from there. So, but as we can see, there's a lot of similarities to the Slavic folklore for the Witcher idea, especially of the getting turned into them, how that works. So,
right. Well, that makes sense. Okay. Well, that's cool. Yeah. There's, it does break away from some of the like modern day concepts of the werewolf. And it does go a little bit like a lot of the things in the Witcher stories does pull from the more Slavic and, Eastern European concepts and kind of works those into the stories, which I love because they're so wacky and like old world, jumping over a tree stump with knives in it. Yeah. That was hit by lightning, or going through a cursed doorway, like things like that. It's just like,
so seeing some of this stuff, right? And I'm actually, because you were talking about the misconception of like people being more crazy during the full moon or whatever. I'm wondering, because obviously a lot of the stuff is back in whenever it's like more pagan religion. And I'm not, it's hard to remember something because obviously I'm not an expert in pagan religion. So, but if I remember correctly, in The Witcher, the books, they talk about like, I think some of the pagan traditions that get celebrated and whatnot. Like they celebrate that one big holiday that I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
Okay.
The one that's like associated with them, like dancing around the Mayflower pole or something.
Okay.
But basically it was like, isn't there sort of like a relation between like, the pagan religion and like the night of the full moon, like where they did these more wacky celebrations and whatnot during that?
I mean, a lot of cultures had, there's some very common times for many cultures to have celebrations. Most cultures have equinox and solstice
Beltane.
celebrations.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Beltane. And then many cultures have like full moon and new moon celebrations. Those are very common as well. So, but is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah, because it said that like for pagan holidays, it's celebrated equinoxes, the Beltane, and then like the solstices and stuff like that. Right. So obviously seems like a lot of their stuff was tied to the I guess moon day cycle,
moon day
specific,
right. Yeah, and usually it had something to do with the cycles of planting, the food cycles, the time of year, things like that, and being like keeping the people's traditions in line with the seasons and the time frame of the year. And it was fundamentally it had something to do with survival is really what it was. It was worshiping the nature spirits and things like that. Like from a spiritual side, it was worshiping the nature spirits and doing those kinds of things. But from a pragmatic side, it was making sure that you were remembering to plant the seeds at the right time and gather your crops at the right time and do all of those things. Prepare to do things at the right time and be on schedule is really what it was. So
that I was thinking of like I can't remember what book it is. I know there's a specific chapter in one of the Witcher books where it's a bit of a kind of crazy relation thing between Geralt and Yennefer during Beltane, where they nearly get caught up in they do get caught up in all of the celebrations, festivities of everything, and end up like kind of, having their night of passion that they end up regretting immediately after, because that's just the story of Yennefer and Geralt. So, right. Yeah. So I don't know if it specifically was a full moon or not, but I feel like that's a lot of, I guess it seems like that's commonly associated, but
yeah.
I'm not an expert in pagan holidays.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, this is a fun episode. I love taking a deeper look into some of these things and then looking at the cultural connections. So very cool stuff. So we have next week
which isn't next week.
Well,
for the people on the live show
watching
right now.
live. So hello, live watchers. But for people who are listening, which is most of our audience, next week is our patron episode. So that is going to be just 1 week away. And right now we've got Ben of Temeria joining us again, and anybody else who signs up on the Patreon as a tier 4 or higher patron can join us as well to discuss some creepy stuff. Because what are we talking about, Toasty?
We're talking about, I think, a creature that anyone familiar with the Witcher universe has definitely heard of before. It's kind of the face monster of the Witcher Monster Slayer, the Leshen.
The Leshen, or the Leshy, as they said on the interview for the season 2 stuff. So
that would be really interesting to dig into, because I know there's a lot of different kind of representations that are really different about the Leshen. So that'll be interesting to dive into like a lot of those different things.
Yes. So prepare for that. And we'd love to have you join us. If you'd like to be on the show, you're welcome to join us. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be awesome. And until then, everybody have a wonderful week. We'll see you. Stay safe out there on the path. And thanks for joining us. So anything you want to share before we head out, Toasty?
The same stuff I said 2 nights ago.
Same stuff you said. Where can people get a hold of you?
Follow us on the at Witcher Lorecast on Twitter. If you want to, keep up to date, which I'm terrible at. I'm trying to get better at it. I'm sorry. Apologize to the people that expect more out of me. And hop into the Discord, and now I'm on the Robots Radio Discord. And if you want to get in there and chat with me or some of the other people who really like the show, talk about all things Witcher and whatnot.
I'd love to see some really cool monster Witcher meme posts in there.
Monster Witcher meme posts.
Yeah, I'd love to see some like Witcher like comics or Witcher memes, or especially ones having to do with monsters.
I feel like we need to get some Witcher emotes. You got all the emotes for a lot of the stuff you do. We need to get some Witcher emotes now.
Well, I don't know if we have more room to add more, but if people want to boost the server, I'm sure we can get some more slots. So yeah, we can definitely add some more. It's just, this is one of the newer shows on the list. So, but yeah, we'll add them as we get some more room for sure. For sure. Also, you guys can reach out to me on Twitch at Robots Radio, on Twitter at Robots_radio. I'm also streaming in the mornings. I'd love to have you come by and hang out with me, either playing games or working on some of the content that I work on. You can be my coworkers. You can help chime in. I can answer questions if you have any questions about content creation or starting your own podcast or anything like that. Also, I've got a goal. I'm really trying to hit an average of 25 concurrent viewers on Twitch, and we've got regular viewers that come in every day, either on the shows at night when we stream shows like this after 9 p.m. Eastern, or in the mornings after 8:30 in the morning when I'm doing my morning streams. So if you want to come help me out, even if it just means putting me up on the screen next to you while you're working or whatever at home, and you just kind of are lurking there and helping me get my numbers up, that would be a huge help, because secrets went out. There were some leaks on Twitch that went out. I don't know if you guys know about this, but somebody leaked a bunch of information from Twitch and like all the top streamers' money that they made over the last 2 years and all this other stuff. But you heard about this? Some of the code went out, and in the code, Twitch doesn't actually help support and share your channel with other channels and like promote your channel unless you're higher than an average 25 viewers. Did you know this?
Really?
Yeah,
I did not see that one.
Yeah, somebody found it in the code. They actually downplay your channel unless you're above the 25 average viewers threshold. It doesn't. Yeah. And it's probably because that's like 90% of the channels on the platform, because otherwise you wouldn't stand out at all anyway. But yeah, so if we can get the channel up above 25 average viewers for like every stream, that would be huge. And all it would take is just some of you guys pulling the channel up when I'm live and just lurking. And that would be huge. That would be really, really helpful. So
I just saw the drama with Critical Role. That's all I saw.
I know, man. They're making so much money doing Critical Role. I was like,
apparently a lot of people are mad at Critical Role because they're making so much money. And it's like, well, the thing is that the reason they're making that money is because you're giving it to them.
You're donating. Yeah.
I was like, all that, the money that they leaked, the dollar amount they leaked is the amount that they're doing in Twitch subscriptions for the most part.
Right. And all you have to do is calculate the number of subscribers, and that is not a secret. Number of subscribers times 2.5 or $3.5.
I was just laughing at that. I was like, people are actually mad because they make so much money, but it's them paying
it's your own money paying them. Yeah.
And I was like, they have to pay for a lot of stuff. The production value they put into their show is ridiculous.
Right. If you love something, then go pay for it. If you don't want to pay for it, then put your money to something else you love. I mean, it's that simple, right? Anyway. Exactly. So yeah, put your money towards something you love. If you love us, we'd love for your support, or just your eyeballs, just give us your eyeballs.
I would love for you to love us.
We'd love for you to love us. And if you don't love us, then love something else, because somebody else is probably doing something awesome and they love your support too. So, that's how it goes. But thanks for being here. We'll see you guys next time, and stay safe on the path. All right. See you guys later. Thanks for tuning in to the Witcher Lorecast. We'd love to hear about your experiences with the games and the books and the TV series and all your thoughts on everything. Please check out the Robots Radio Discord and follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.